What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 5 edition of the Pro Football Focus Fantasy Show here on RotoGrinders. I am Brit Devine, joined as always by Mr. Ian Hartitz. I'm calling you corporate Ian Hartitz today. What's up, dude? Rocking the NBC gear.
Got the quarter zip on. Shout out ex-employer Roto World. But yeah, man, great day to be great. I think we got a good old slate to talk about. Got more value everywhere, as it seems to be the case, more weeks than not. But a lot of plays to be made, decisions to be made. Let's get after it.
Yeah, let's see if we can pull some good plays and bets out from behind the pantry behind you during the show. Let's jump right into this. As always, right, Ian does a lot of work over at Pro Football Focus. So we like to sort of highlight that here on this show. He spends a lot of time writing his article. He calls it the football mismatches, matchups. We always call it the mismatch manifesto on this show. Goes over a bunch of different statistics of teams and all that fun stuff in order to glean some knowledge on maybe things we can use in the sports book or for DFS this week. So without any further ado, Ian, let's jump right into it. I have the article pulled up live for all of you that are watching the show on YouTube. And hey, if you are on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe, get access to everything we have here on RotoGrinders. But if you want to read this article in more depth, Ian has made it free to all of the people over on Pro Football Focus this entire season. The easiest way to find it, type Ian's name in the search bar is what I found doing it. And you'll be able to sort of sort by latest date. And it should be one of the latest things that he's done there. Let's talk about explosive plays. These are chunk yardage plays. These can turn. You can go from middle of the pack in a tournament to the top of the leaderboard in a single play here. What are some good offenses we can target and maybe some defenses that maybe we don't want to pick on this week?
Yeah, so just quick kind of explainer if you haven't seen these charts before. Instead of having to go through every single matchup and be like, hey, number 3 offense versus number 30 defense, I just combine the numbers to make it a one-way metric, color-coded, to just point out, hey, these are where, if you want to look at where the potential mismatches could be, this is where they are. And looking at the explosive passing games, Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins, and Derek Carr stand out the most on the main slate. I do like the potential of Cousins maybe going against the grain on Dalvin Cook, or maybe more likely Alexander Madison getting a lot of ownership, but we'll see how that plays out. And then with Derek Carr and company, like, hey man, it was only one bad week. The previous 7 weeks, I believe, Derek Carr threw for over 300 yards. So I know Henry Ruggs, as we'll get to in our tournament talk, is someone I do like as a potential bounce back candidate. And then guys that could be in some trouble, Jameis Winston, he throws such a pretty deep ball. He's only completed 5 of them this year. The Bears have more completions of 20 plus yards than the Saints. So hopefully him and Sean Payton can get that figured out. And then Justin Fields and Trey Lance also not set up for a bunch of success. Hopefully they run enough where it doesn't matter in fantasy land.
Yeah, I'm on the, I know you like that Derek Carr, at least on this particular statistic, but I'm very anti-Raiders when we get to the sports betting version of this today. Yeah. I do like the Bears line here. Let's go down to pace. This is one of the most important things when factoring into projections and plays and fantasy points, all that type of good stuff. What are the fastest matchups? What are the slowest matchups this week?
Yeah, not too many fast ones, just the way it worked out. We do see the Dolphins and Buccaneers popping, and it sounds like Devontae Parker now might be at risk of missing Sunday. We already have Will Fuller out. So I do think that maybe going, and we talked about the explosive plays, Brady popping a little bit there, maybe a stack with Tom Brady, Antonio Brown. You can get really contrarian, go Cameron Brate or something like that, and then bring it back with a Jalen Waddle or a Mike Gesicki because, hey, man, Buccaneers have allowed the most fantasy points per game to wide receivers this year. We'll talk about in the pressure section why I'm a little not all that confident in Jacoby Brissett's chances at overcoming that. But again, maybe just one guy, he can only be so bad with 10 plus targets. Eagles, Panthers also popping a little bit, but again, more so just Dolphins and Buccaneers from a pace perspective. The slowest ones, Lions, Vikings, and Packers and Bengals. I could see them still putting up plenty of points regardless because we're talking about some pretty good offenses and I think more importantly, bad defenses here. So hopefully they'll be able to be efficient with their chances because there might not be as many of those as usual.
Yeah, and the Cincinnati too. I think that you can talk yourself into a way where maybe they play a little faster without Joe
I
Mixon.
agree.
But you just, I mean, that's just we're just trying to maybe manufacture a couple extra plays for us in that way. We don't really know. But if Mixon's out, maybe they do go to the air a little bit more, which will increase the seconds per play and stuff like that. That is an interesting game. And Green Bay, for as explosive as their offense can be, they've been very slow over since LaFleur started taking over here. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to factor in the amount of plays that will be in each game. All right, scrolling down, let's get to pressure. We want no pressure for our quarterbacks. We want lots of pressure for the defenses we choose. What are some statistics popping out this week?
Yeah, so on that Bengals-Packers game, both of these guys standing out as two of the cleanest quarterbacks of the week. Don't forget Jair Alexander ruled out. I think if you want to maybe just build some tournament rosters around Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and just bring it back with a different Bengals receiver every time might make a lot of sense. Again, we're not sure if we would hope there's more volume, but I feel like at least one of these guys will pop off a week, even if we don't exactly have enough volume for all three to make it. Big Ben's popping on this. That's because Big Ben does not want to take a hit ever. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. The Broncos do have a very good pass rush, but when it's 4th and 10 and you're just getting rid of the ball immediately, you're not going to register a bunch of pressure. So wouldn't look too far into that. And then finally, Taylor Heineke is standing out a little bit, man. He does have that sort of dual threat Konami code of goodness. I believe he's registered 2 top 10 finishes already this year. So it felt a little fluky last week. And I know the Saints are a lot better than the Falcons, but at the minimum, I think Terry McLaurin could have another nice day. Guys that could be under some more pressure, Jalen Hurts, and he's still down. I believe it's 4 total starting offensive linemen because Lane Johnson.
I want him under pressure. That's when he gets the scrambles. That's good for me.
Yeah, there's a limit though, man. It's fair though. He is 11th in total rushing yards since he took over in week 14 last year among everybody, quarterbacks and running backs alike. So you might be onto it. He hasn't busted yet, so who knows, but it's not looking great. And then Teddy Bridgewater and Jacoby Brissett standing out as well. Both of these guys, it's not so much they're off. The Miami O-line kind of sucks too, but especially Teddy, he's been throwing more downfield this year, but it's come at a cost. He's been holding that ball longer than 3 seconds, a lot more often than he should be. So a little bit worried about how Denver's going to respond in this Pittsburgh environment. And then, with Jacoby, it's one of the things we can do to really find out if an offensive line's problems is more due to the quarterback or them is we can look at just the pressure when the quarterback gets rid of the ball in under 2.5 seconds. So who's still getting pressured even when they're getting it out quickly. And it's still the Dolphins. So they have a quarterback that takes too long to throw and the O-line's not even helping matters. So that's, I guess, my only problem with being more confident in Gesicki or Jalen Waddle in this spot, because as bad as the cornerbacks might be, I'm not sure he's going to have enough time and just the sense of urgency to get the ball out there in the first place.
All right, keep going down on the article. You can follow along if you're watching live on the show. Let's go to the trench battles, yards before contact. This is good for your running backs, right? You want Ezekiel Elliott to get 17 yards before he's touched, right? Because that's going to help him out. And there are some defenses that are pretty good at stopping the run game that maybe you don't want to use the running backs against here. What's really standing out for you this week?
As my lovely employer PFF likes to say, running backs don't always matter as much as we think they do. So this is just trying to pinpoint what running games should be in the best position for success, independent of the actual running backs, and several popping off. We are seeing the Bills, Chiefs, but that's Sunday night, obviously. So main slate wise, the Browns against the Chargers defense that they have Bosa, they have good guys in the middle, but you take away Kenneth Murray, that doesn't help. And they just don't care. Brandon Staley is helping revolutionize the idea that you just sit back and you let teams run because you're devoting more resources to the pass. I believe only the Broncos have had fewer rush attempts this year with 8+ guys in the box. So they just really let you run your hearts out. And that could be a problem against Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, who are both playing fantastic ball this year. Also seeing the Lions really coming out. Deandre Swift, man, he's been pretty terrible as a rusher this year. If you just look at any stat, he's one of the worst running backs in terms of breaking tackles on the ground, yards after contact. But hey, might have the lanes this week. And more importantly, he just has all the receptions that come his way when the Lions inevitably get down a score or two. So I think if you want to get, contrarian, as we talked about a little bit already, get away from Dalvin and go to that Vikings passing game, bringing that back with Swift, or, it sounds like Hawkinson's not going to play. So just bring it back with Swift, or, throw a dart at one of the receivers might not be the worst idea here. And then finally, who's my other one? Oh yeah, the Giants, man, looking good against this Cowboys fairly soft run D. They got rid of Jalen Smith, so that might be a net positive for them. But Saquon, man, I still think he's just, it's a matter of time until his salary is going to be starting with a 9. So I still think he's probably a little too cheap on DraftKings. And then quickly, the Dolphins and Texans don't have good matchups, and good. We don't need them anyway. Not Damon Harris, Najee Harris and Austin Eckler, not great matchups, but so much of their work is done through the air that we don't care. The only really interesting one I'll talk a little bit about is Josh Jacobs, because lost kind of in that bad Monday night performance. He had 18 combined carries and targets in a game that they were trailing by 2 scores for most of the day. So I think Jacobs is actually one of the league's top 10 backs with the ball just in his hands. The problem is the Raiders haven't thrown it to him over the years. So Peyton Barber's hurt. They're clearly kind of souring on Kenyon Drake after making him one of the free agency period's highest paid backup running backs. So I wouldn't be surprised, man, if Josh Jacobs could have himself a day here, particularly at the fields that showed up against, the Browns is there as opposed to one we saw against the Lions.
Yeah, I do think, let's see here. Peyton Barber did return to practice today after not practicing Wednesday and Thursday. So
he's still Peyton Barber.
Well, I don't know. John Gruden liked Peyton Barber. We'll have to see how that plays out. I just wanted to point out. I want to ask you, I see real quick on here, I see New England in the red here. Damian Harris against Houston. What do we make of this here? Which side of this is this on the New England side or is this on the Texan side?
Well, here's the thing about the Patriots. 4 of their starting offensive linemen haven't been practicing this week. I'm trying to see if they've updated. Yeah, I can't find it right now, but we really need to keep an eye on that because that's going to be the big difference. The Patriots aren't showing out too well, but here's the thing. They faced this is where we also got to remember this is a 4-week sample. Over the past 2 weeks, they faced the Saints and the Buccaneers, and we have a cool behind the scenes metric that shows what the we have average target depth. This is like the average depth that a running back has made contact with relative to the line of scrimmage. And by far the best 2 defenses all year have been the Saints and Buccaneers at this. I believe they're the top 2 defenses and fewest PPR points per game allowed to running backs last year. Like they just sell out against the run more than almost anyone else. So it makes sense that Damian and the Patriots really haven't even tried to run the ball over the past 2 weeks. It makes sense that he hasn't really been popping off and these numbers are down. Now, I'm not afraid of Houston, but without 4 starting offensive linemen, it's not great. I think in cash, it's a little bit too risky for Damon Harris here, but tournaments, man, we are looking at a game where coming off most routes of the season, most snaps of the season, 15 to 20, combined carries and targets should still go a fairly long way.
All right. Going down the article just a little bit more. We've got the passing game looking at yards per drop back. Can also sort of lead to some explosive plays as well. You want teams chucking the ball down the field. You don't want Ben Roethlisberger dinking dunks on 4th and 10 to Najee Harris here. So what are some maybe big play offenses we could be looking at this week?
Yeah, pretty similar findings as the offenses that might be more screwed as the explosive pass plays. So we'll focus on the positives, and it's really just the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, even though last week the Browns only held the Vikings to, I think it was like 7 points when it was all said and done, Cousins was still making, a handful of just spectacular throws out there. And at PFF, we have our wide receiver cornerback matchup chart where you can expand the whole thing, and then you have 15 columns, height, weight, speed, percentage here, percentage there, or you can just have the wide receiver, the primary matchup, and our matchup grade. And if at its simplest, Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson have 2 of the top 3 individual matchups of the week against these Lions corners. And what's the only problem we ever run into with this Vikings passing game? It's volume. And I'm not saying it'll necessarily be there with Dalvin Cook and or Alexander Mattison probably having a bunch of success, but at least in tournaments, man, I think the more you can get exposure to this Vikings passing game, throw Tyler Conklin in there as well, the better.
It does look like Cook seems like he's going to play from everything that's coming across.
It's a game time decision that.
Yeah, maybe looks like, if I'm reading between the lines, it seems probably a little healthier this week than he was last week. It's against the Lions, but if for some reason they run into any sort of trouble in the run game, I'll talk about in a couple of minutes on some of the wide receiver leverage points. Those Vikings wide receivers look pretty juicy this week, in my opinion. So I'm on board with that. Let's close it out here. Let's talk about EPA. You had a good run with it last year. How's it working out this year again? Did it claw back at all last week?
We're doing good. We're at 5-3. I've been 1-2 last week, so it was a little work, but it's 5-3 against the spread and straight up. So if you want to just look at the money line value you've made, looking all right. So we do have 3 more qualifiers this week that I think you can talk yourself into Bengals +3 at home against the Packers. Remember, the Bengals have had the extra long week following their Thursday night game. Packers defense that, no one was exactly talking about them being all that great to begin with. Zadarius Smith, Jair Alexander, both out. I mean, it's just not looking all that good for them. So I don't know. I actually lean towards the Packers, but it's an interesting spot. Broncos +1. I agree with that, against the Steelers offense and quietly a defense that aren't nearly as good as we're used to them being. And then the Bills +3. I think the Bills are better than the Chiefs in every single area. The problem is we've had Josh Allen really be a middling to below average real life quarterback in 3 of the 4 games this season. He's still QB7 in fantasy. He's always been a great fantasy quarterback, even before last year when he turned into a real life world beater. So I feel a lot better about even taking the Bills money line here if we just had a little more confidence in Josh playing to the best of his abilities.
I do want to note on that game, there is I just pulled up the weather. That's really one of the only weather spots.
Oh.
We've got a 60% chance with what looks like thunderstorms right at game time on that Sunday night game. So that game could get a little interesting. Maybe it hits a little earlier, maybe it hits a little later. But I did want to point that out in case anyone was looking to bet some over unders on that one. Getting ahead of the weather push, if at all possible, can be a massive swing, especially when the total is that high. All right, Ian, that's going to do it for this week's Mismatch Manifesto. Again, if any of you guys want to read the whole entire thing, you can get that over on profootballfocus.com. You can also get another subscription there. You can listen to Ian. I always tell you guys every week, my favorite pods are, I like the PFF breakdown you do with Dwayne McFarland on Wednesdays. I like the DFS matchups you do on Thursdays as well. I like the recap you do. That's like 2 hours long, but basically anything on the PFF feed that Ian's on, I love, which is why I love doing the show with my man here. So go check that out and everything else over on Pro Football Focus. All right, let's jump into some sports bets here. And Ian, after a horrific week 1 and even a little bit of week 2, we have clawed our ways back to some respectability.
Don't let him get hot. Don't let him get hot.
I had a nice little run. I basically got everything I wanted last week except the Bucks. That game just didn't really work out. But basically everything else I bet came up roses for me. So a really good sports book week for me personally. And I'm hoping to keep it hot here. I've got 3 bets I like, and then I've got, maybe I'm a donkey, but I like just like betting the favorites on a parlay that I think can't lose. So I got one of those fun ones for you. So I got the first one is the Patriots -9. And I don't know, why is this not like 13 or 14 in my opinion? I don't know how the Texans can the Texans score 14 points, Ian, in this game? I don't know. I don't even
bet the under, I think.
Yeah,
I just far off from their implied total.
Yeah, the Patriots defense it's legit. Like they have a very good defense. And their offense, I think, is good enough between Harris and you got Jacoby Myers, you got the 2 tight ends, Mac Jones, went toe-to-toe with Tom Brady last week. It seems like it's too easy to take anything against Davis Mills right now of the Texans here. So I really like that Patriots -9. Of all the big total favorites, they're probably my favorite one this week. The other one is I go to my sports book. It opens at 11 o'clock on Mondays. I just found this out. That's when they release their NFL lines. So I got there at 11. I got Arizona at -4 against San Francisco. It's up to -5 now. I still think that's pretty bettable against the rookie and Trey Lance. You just know it's a little bit of a wild card, right? But what you're betting on is Arizona at home. This is the offense Cliff Kingsbury has always wanted to run. Between having Rondale Moore, AJ Green is making this offense click. Kyler Murray's unstoppable. The defense is good enough. I think Arizona -5 is another really big favorite that I think you can bet pretty good. And then 2 of my favorite live dogs this week. The one I'm going to put up here is going to be the Bears at +5.5. We saw like Derek Carr for those first 3 games, Ian. He's not a 400 yards per game passer. That's what he was doing through the first 3 games. And I think that came to fruition a little bit against the Chargers in week 4, in my opinion. He's not going to be slinging it all over, getting all these yards to all these receivers. That's just not Derek Carr. You got Josh Jacobs back, which maybe is a little bit of a detriment, in my opinion, to the offense because they were slinging it around without Josh Jacobs. I think Gruden will sort of feed him a little bit here. But I just think the Bears, you've got another game with Justin Fields at quarterback here. I just think the Raiders are fake a little bit to open the season. So I'm going to take the Bears at +5.5 as my 3 bets I'm going to lock in here for the show. And then if you like donkey betting all of the favorites with me, I like the Bucks, Cards, Patriots and Cowboys. Right before the show, I looked that up on DK as a parlay. They get you plus 202. I don't see how any of those teams lose. So to me, that's just like free money to me from the sports books. Take a look at that one if you like the parlay. So those are my bets. Ian, what are you looking at this week?
Yeah, so my big one I put down earlier this week, that's off to a good start. Moneyline parlay, Rams, Panthers, Cowboys, Cardinals, riding the favorite train. Like yourself, got the Rams dub. That was plus 379. Now you can obviously can't bet on the Rams anymore, but still get Panthers, Cowboys, Cardinals at plus 209. So not huge, but hey, we'll take those 2-1 odds and we can get it and feel good about those. I am riding the favorites on against the spread. I think the Panthers at -3. I just think Philly is pretty terrible, man. They kind of fool people with that week 1 beatdown of the Falcons. Since then, they just haven't really looked all that competitive. Credit to Hurts for moving the ball against that terrible Chiefs defense, but it was also concerning how they just had nothing for them. This Panthers defense, wow, I think the Cowboys showed they aren't, for real, this like top 5 juggernaut. They were still playing some good ball, and they've still proved to be able to get pressure on just about anyone. You look at this Eagles O-line, which is down, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 starters now with Lane Johnson still out. I just think 3 points is coverable. And yeah, with the Packers, I do think, I was talking to my friends about maybe like hyping up the Bengals, and they were like, come on, man. They were down 14-0 against the Jaguars and they got clawed back into it. I was at the game last week, so I think my emotions from being, a proud Cincinnatian were clouding my vision a little bit. At the end of the day, it's Aaron Rodgers, being given less than 3 points against a Bengals defense that I don't think can slow down Devontae and company. So I think Burrow and company can keep things close and keep pace, but I do like the Packers at under 3 points. And then finally, just the Chargers where, hey, Baker Mayfield, I thought he just had a bad game last week. I didn't know he was playing through a freaking torn labrum. He's going to keep trying to do that. This Chargers secondary isn't easy to pass against to begin with. And I think Herbert and company have proven themselves enough where, hey, Myles Garrett, who actually is questionable and a little banged up, he's going to make some plays, but I think the Chargers can put up, 30 when they're at their best on just about anybody. So I'm happy to take, when I see like quarterback and just offensive advantages, like I believe the Packers hold over the Bengals and the Chargers hold over the Browns. If we can get fewer than 3 points on that, sign me up.
Yeah, I will say I sort of disagree with you on the Panthers. I think the Eagle, I gave the Bears at plus 5.5. I think the Eagles are one of the other live dogs that I might try betting this week personally. So we'll see who comes out on
I disagree on your Bears plus 5.5. So there we are. Right. We'll see what's what.
Yeah, you like the Raiders. Hopefully I come out 2-0. But actually, Ian, I hope we just split them so neither one of us can hold the advantage.
There we go.
All right, before we get into some position talk, I need to tell you guys about Jock Market. Stop throwing away your money. It's time to check out Jock Market, the app where daily fantasy becomes a stock exchange. Buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money. Download now for a 100% deposit bonus up to $50 using promo code Grinders. So let me give you a little tip here. You deposit 50, use promo code Grinders, you got $100 in your account. Now listen up. If you are a new player to Jock Market, they have their first market guarantee. What does that mean? That means on your very first market. So let's say you jump in on the Sunday market with your $100 that you got from our promotion. If you lose that $100, Jock Market will cover your losses in your first market as a new player under their first market guarantee. So go check them out. Again, that's promo code Grinders for a 100% deposit match up to $50. All right, let's talk some cash plays. I like to do this. And I was looking through before the show, and we were pretty on it last week. I got to say, Ian, across the board, both in cash and tournaments for the most part. I want to talk to you about Dak Prescott at quarterback this week, because he certainly seems like he's going to be the quarterback cash choice of the masses. There are a couple cheaper options. You're going to have Trey Lance, and Danny Dimes is probably going to be in there too. But I guess I want to get your thought on this. The Cowboys offense, they're bullying everybody on the run side of the ball right now. They're just pounding Zeke. They're pounding Tony Pollard. They're getting 5-6 yards a carry. They haven't really needed to do anything other than that over the past couple of games, which has led to Dak Prescott. I think his pass attempts are actually here. Let me pull it up on DraftKings.
27, 26, and 22 over the last 3.
Yeah, it's super low. So he's getting by with stupid efficiency, right? Which is great until you don't get that game anymore. So what are we doing? I guess what's your thought on him? Because I'm kind of torn. Will that efficiency always be there? They are big home favorites. And if they get up, I'm going to guess you're going to get that high dose of Ezekiel Elliott. That's what they seem to want to do when they're up and they're winning and they're crushing in games here. What's your thought on him as a cash game quarterback this week?
Well, we're not getting the usual Dak Prescott as a rusher either. He had 35 yards last week, but it was more due to like one or two busted plays. We're still not seeing any sort of him being used as, a read option guy or like design QB runs around the goal line. That used to be a major part of it. And, you talked about PFF Fantasy Pod. Dwayne and I were talking about the rest of the season quarterback rankings. I believe Dwayne's got like Dak QB 11, Derek Carr QB 12, like Stafford and Brady if he's having, a little bit of a down stretch. But that's kind of what Dak is more like if he's not going to be this big rushing threat near the goal line. So I don't know, man. I don't feel like if I'm going to go up for it, I'm fine to spend an extra $1,000 and get all the way up to Kyler, where we are still getting that elite rushing upside with the passing upside. So for like Dak going into the year, we thought we had more rushing ability and we thought we had higher volume, partially because we thought the Cowboys defense was going to continue to be bad, but we just haven't seen that since week 1. So maybe Daniel Jones and company can bring it out of them, but 7-point favorite, man, we could be looking at another game where it's just an efficient, but not incredible 25 pass attempts.
Yeah, I might dance with the devil of Jalen Hurts for 100 more in cash. He just always gets there. And Dak said no one's stopping me from running this week, but definitely no one is stopping Jalen Hurts from running on all the scrambles that he's going to be having this week, in my opinion. So I might go Hurts for just 100 more. I think where I'm ultimately going to end up, Ian, though, is the Danny Dimes. He's 6,000 on DraftKings, and then the Trey Lance tier at 5,700. If you're torn between those two, I think Daniel Jones has been pretty consistent, has some upside, runs a little bit. And I think Dallas is probably one of the better offenses in the league, in my opinion. I think Dallas is going to have no problem putting up 27 plus, real life football points in this game here. Do you prefer him or, shot take on Trey Lance? He got there really off of one big play last week, but I guess that it sort of is what his receivers do. That's what he's supposed to do. Yeah. He has the actual real life 15 plus running attempt possibility that Danny Dimes doesn't have. What's your drug of choice between those two?
Yeah, I mean, that was such a blown coverage on that DO score. So
that's what he does, though. It happens.
It happens. It happens. So here's my thing with these guys and why I just want to pay up for Kyler. Like we've talked about Jalen Hurts and these O-line problems against a really good front seven from Carolina. And we got Trey Lance going on the road facing a Cardinals defensive line that we have also seen borderline take over games. Like it's giving me Fields going up against the Browns vibes, man. Now we have Kyle Shanahan calling plays, not Matt Nagy. So pretty big difference there. But the Cowboys this year, they rank going on to Daniel Jones now. I have a fun stat I like to look at. I found it in like the college football world, but you can apply it to the NFL. It's called Havoc, which takes tackles for a loss, forced fumbles, interceptions, pass deflections, pressure, things that help give us fantasy points on defense divided by plays. And among the top 5 defenses this year, the Cowboys are 4th and the Cardinals are just outside of it at 8th. So these are, and the Browns are at 2nd. So like they're defenses that are able to wreak a lot of havoc in the backfield. And I just think both Lance and Hurts and Danny Dimes honestly could be looking at it. Panthers are 3rd, by the way, for the Jalen Hurts thing. So yeah, man, like, look, we can get RSJ for 2,500. We can get Curtis Samuel for $3K. Even the Washington defense is like 2,200. I can still fit Henry, Devontae Adams with Kyler Murray. So until I see a major reason to really, I don't want to get up to 2 super high running backs. So I think paying up a quarterback is fair this week.
Yeah, we're missing the Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson quarterbacks this week. So it is the guys we really want to use aren't all there. I guess I do personally. I think I have a little bit of trepidation rolling with Dak, just given how efficient the offense has been. If we just get those 25 pass attempts, it's very hard to hit that 25 plus fantasy point ceiling unless you're ultra efficient. So I am a little worried on that, but I guess I'll have to see. I guess what I'm saying is I'm undecided at this point who my cash game quarterback is going to be. Probably going to be the last spot I do.
It's a good debate.
A couple of tournament plays. So I mentioned Kirk I think I've talked Kirk Cousins in the Minnesota passing game because he's always like Kirk Cousins is like 3%. His receivers are 3 to 5%. That's it this week too. They're going up against the Lions. If no one's going to be using them, seems like a reasonable spot to want to maybe be a little overweight on the Minnesota offense. And then I like, Tannehill to your boy AJ Brown without Julio Jones in there. I think everyone who was smart was just betting AJ Brown yards, AJ Brown receptions. As soon as those props open, his reception prop was 4 when I was at the sports book a couple hours ago. Definitely hit the over on that one. His receiving prop was at like 50. I think Dan wrote him up on Scores and Odds. It's up to like 63 or 64 or something like that now. But Tannehill to AJ Brown and mix in. I don't even know who you want to mix in. I think we've seen last year Tannehill, AJ Brown, and Derrick Henry all go off in the same game. I think you can make stacks like that, but if you wanted to maybe avoid Derrick Henry and use your salary elsewhere, Tannehill does give a little bit of leverage off of him.
No, I'm with you. And you stole both of mine. I think going off of, Cook is now looking maybe even super questionable. So I get it if we're not surprising people as much, but going with Tannehill and AJB, and, even if you do still want to throw another guy in there, but like you said, probably not. I think it makes a lot of sense. Also, Tom Brady. I mean, again, popping in every single, really metric thing we have going. And hey, if you want to fade the idea where Mike Evans and Antonio Brown are going to have a rougher time dealing with Byron Jones and Xavier Howard on the outside, it could still work out if you want to go with Cameron Brate and Chris Godwin going on the inside of things. So Leonard Fournette, I think, is another running back that is shaping up to be awfully chalky. Maybe people get off him a little more with Giovanni Bernard expected to play, but the Buccaneers are up there, I think, with the Bills as one of those few offenses where even if they do beat a team down, we're still seeing their quarterback flirt with 40 pass attempts. So I'm less afraid to ride the Buccaneers or Bills when they're in a game favored by a lot.
All right, let's go to some cash game running backs possibility. Of course, if you can get to Derrick Henry, I think you certainly want to play him. I was eyeing CMC for less, but it's CMC's doubtful now. That happened about an hour or two before we started the show. So he's off, and I don't really think you want to play Chuba Hubbard after he was splitting work last week. We sort of learned how that was going to play out. So I'm not really on that Carolina run game. Of course, you can get to Derrick Henry. His prop was around, I think it was 120 something yards when I was at the sports book. That seems about right. Is it 1 or is it 3 touchdowns that he gets? And is it 0 or is it 3 receptions? So of course you can get to him. And I think he's certainly viable on DraftKings. He is a little bit expensive on FanDuel, but you could probably make that work if you really want to. The mid-tier looks pretty good, right? So you mentioned Leonard Fournette, and I do think his ownership will come down as the weekend progresses, as we see Gio Bernard. Looks like he's going to get used a little bit more. But you can still find guys like we've got Najee Harris, who is, 6,900 on DraftKings, and you get like these free PPR points on DraftKings. They'll still count at the end. You get 6 or 7 of those for 30 or 40 yards. You're basically starting with 10 PPR points, and then it's, does he find it in the end zone? Does he get more than 50 yards rushing? That looks pretty good to me. And then you've got the Damian Williams from Chicago. You've got I was eyeing Chase Edmonds, but he looks reasonably questionable to play. We'll have to see on that. Still don't know if if we got the Schefter tweet overnight that Chase Edmonds was not going to play, is James Conner the guy we want to put all of our money in? He has the touchdown equity, but does he have the other kind of equity?
I think we fade him and we get contrarian and go at Rondale Moore, hoping that he gets more of the Chase Edmonds pass game work. Because I think that could be what ends up happening. Connor he'll get like the majority, if not all, of the 8 to 10 early down carries Edmonds was going to get anyway, but Rondale could be the one that now sees an extra 5 targets.
And then what are we doing? Let's talk Samaje Perine a little bit here too. So there's some coach speak that they're going to maybe split some work and play the hot hand, all that type of fun stuff here. But when Joe Mixon was out, it was all Samaje Perine basically getting all the work here. Mixon, if you ask me, he's more doubtful than questionable. In my opinion, these ankle injuries, you really shouldn't come back to a week after. You never really know. He is 4,500 on DraftKings.
He's min.
He's the min. He's the min 4,000. How do we handle him? What's his expected workload in this game against the Packers? Because that Packers defense, it is beat up and they have not stopped the run in like 4 years.
I do think we're looking at almost like a 70-30 snap split between him and Chris Evans. We had a little bit of coach speak come out saying they want to use a committee and get Evans going on pass downs, but coaches can say all they want. We got to kind of look at what they've been doing so far. And the only times Chris Evans has played, he has not pass blocked for a single snap, and he's run 9 routes. 7 of them have been in the slot or out wide. So they really haven't even used him as a true running back thus far. And that kind of goes back to preseason when he scored a nice touchdown against the Dolphins. He was in the slot. that's a fun role. And maybe it does expand now without Mixon in there. But I just think that Pirine, someone we saw work pretty side by side with Giovanni Bernard for most of last year while Mixon was out, he'll be the guy getting the overwhelming majority of early down work. And I think a handful of receptions as well in the passing game. So yeah, at 4K, if you want to go down there and get it, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that helps us get up to Kyler and some of these other guys. So
yeah, just the cheaper and Damian Williams, Leonard Fournette we talked about. We're going to have Samaje Perine possibly. It looks like that's probably mix two of those in with Derrick Henry maybe in cash, and you're probably looking good in my opinion.
Yeah, only other one I'd add is Deandre Swift. I would kind of refrain from going with Damian Williams. We're not positive yet if he's going to have that 3-down role. I think so, but hey, Khalil Herbert could always eat into that way more than we're expecting. Ooh. So, hey, man, he's number 2.
I know. I'm just messing with you.
I hear you. But we got DeAndre Swift sitting at 6,100. And yeah, Jamal Williams is going to get his fair share of the work too. But, being in a dome against a bad defense as a touchdown underdog, these are types of spots where we could see Swift flirting with that 8 to 10 reception mark. So he really is, if you can't get all the way up to Najee or whatever, and you don't want to mess around with one of these guys in the 5K range, feel free to go all the way down to Samaje. That's fine. But Swift at 6,100, I think is more than fair.
All right. Tournament running backs. Who's on your radar for that?
I love the spot, like right kind of around Damian Williams and stuff, because I think everyone wants the new thing, man. So people will have a higher ownership on Damian Williams. James Robinson has the good home spot where I think
love J-Rob this week.
Yeah, that makes sense. Even with Hyde coming back, he does have the receiving work. But I think there's 3 guys in that range where we can also get behind and conveniently stack them with their defense and hopefully get that sweet correlation going. So Damon Harris, who we talked about, I'm not loving the 4 linemen being out, but still, as someone that should see 15 to 20 carries, big favorite against the Texans. I think him and that Patriots defense against the Texans makes a lot of sense. Chuba at 6K with McCaffrey seemingly out. I know Rodney Smith got those receptions, and I know you're not seeing eye to eye with me on the Panthers over the Eagles this week, but if they do kind of dominate this game the way I think they might, again, Panthers with that defense, which we know they can get all the sacks. I like that. And then finally, Josh Jacobs, which is another game we don't exactly agree on here at 5.9 with the Raiders defense against Justin Fields. So we're getting 2 rookie quarterback matchups and another one against Jalen Hurts, where he's just one of those guys where he could have a great game, but still take, 4 or 5 sacks because he's running around back there all the time.
All right. Myra, it's hard to get running back leverage. But there's an easy one this week, and that is without question Ezekiel Elliott. In my opinion, everyone is going to be playing Dak. The wide receiver CeeDee Lamb Amari Cooper is 6,100, CeeDee Lamb is 6,200. They're popping in for percentage owned as well. So an easy way to get leverage off of that are to just use Zeke. People are Tony Pollard, but the Cowboys, when they're up, when they want to score touchdowns, when they want to run clock and they're up late, it is Ezekiel Elliott getting the football. So you have a very good chance, I think, of 20 plus touches, I think are very, very likely for Zeke this week. And it allows you to get leverage off what I expect to be a very highly owned Cowboys passing game. I mentioned YouTube earlier. If you guys are watching on YouTube and you don't subscribe to the RotoGrinders Daily Fantasy Football feed, go check that out on your favorite podcast feed. You get access to this show and basically a bajillion other shows that happen to pop up over the week here on RotoGrinders. There's shows every day, tournaments, cash games, whatever your flavor of the week. You can find that not only on YouTube, not only on RotoGrinders, but on the podcast feed as well. So make sure to check that out. All right, let's go to wide receiver. I'll let you kick off the cash game wide receivers this week. Usually it's me. I'll throw you a curveball. Ian, who are we looking at in your eyes?
Wow, thanks so much, man.
So you should be honored.
all this value we talked about with Pirine, we'll get to a tight end and defense as well, and also more Curtis Samuel, stone cold 3K once again. He is questionable, but they've talked about throughout the week, just wanting to manage his reps. I do think he will be out there. And with Diane Lee Brown out this week, we're looking at him, maybe even getting a higher snap rate, but he's in a situation where they just force fed him 4 targets in his 25 snaps he had last week. So I think the possibilities Curtis opens up. I'm fine using a slot on him at 3K. Laviska Shenault at 4.8K in an offense without DJ Chark should only lead to more air yards for Shenault down the field. And, Jaguars, Titans, it goes both ways. Things are looking good for A.J. Brown and company, but we don't respect this Titans secondary either, which I believe is second to last in PPR points per game allowed to receivers this year. And all this saving allows us to go up and get Davante Adams in this inevitable huge bounce back spot. And when I was looking at the slate earlier this week, I tried to look at all the receivers like at 6K and above. And I was just like, who's going to get the most targets? Davante Adams, of course. But after that, man, I think it's pretty clearly Deontay Johnson. So I don't think I trust the Big Ben experience quite enough to roster him in cash. I like going with the three receivers here in Adams, Curtis, and Shenault, and then kind of paying up elsewhere at running back and stuff. But I do think, especially tournaments, Deontay Johnson, if there is someone that can make the most out of these, prayer yards that Big Ben is throwing people's way this season, it is Deontay.
Yeah, so I guess I'll lead off wide receiver with some of my leverage plays, and Deontay's definitely in there because Najee Harris is going to be the most popular Steelers by a wide margin at the running back position. So Deontay for sure. There is no question that he is the number one target in Pittsburgh, even when everyone is healthy. So take a look at him for a leverage play in tournaments. A couple others is Justin Jefferson. We currently have, let me pull these up. Let me get the latest and greatest ownership numbers from RotoGrinders. But I wrote down earlier, he is 1/6 the ownership of Davante Adams. And in no way is he 1/6 as likely to put up a GPP winning performance as Davante Adams this week. So we currently have Adams at 21% and Justin Jefferson at 4%. So if that holds true in tournaments, Justin Jefferson looks like the ultimate swerve, in my opinion, just the one true alpha. Just hope, as long as Adam Thielen catches all the touchdowns, but let's hope he doesn't catch all the touchdowns this week, and maybe a couple of them can go to Justin Jefferson. I mentioned Deontay Johnson. Another one in tournaments I got is if Damian Williams does hold ownership, you could take a look at Darnell Mooney. He is reasonably cheap, and I know people were playing Mooney last week. I think he is also reasonably viable this week. For cash games, I do agree you can get to Davante Adams. And while it certainly didn't work out last week, if you played him in cash, it's very unlikely that Davante Adams gets 64 yards and no touchdowns. I'll take the over on both of those numbers this week, probably. Just the true number one target. You can get to him in cash. Probably going to play one of those like 6K-ish wide receivers. You mentioned Deontay Johnson. You've got both Cowboys wide receivers. You've got A.J. Brown. You've got Keenan Allen, all just pure. Keenan Allen, Deontay Johnson are definitely higher floor players, I think, than either of the Cowboys wide receivers, if we're looking at from that way, in my opinion. And A.J. Brown might even be this week too. So I'm a little bit more down on the Cowboys passing game simply due to volume. That Antonio Brown 5,200 looks pretty juicy. You mentioned Shenault. What's he, 4,800 on DraftKings? Yep. That looks absolutely juicy. And then Curtis Samuel, what did he play, like 35% of the snaps or something like that last week? You got Diami Brown. He's out this week, and Diami Brown played 42% of the snaps last week. So I don't know if it's all going to go to Curtis Samuel, but I would expect Curtis Samuel to jump pretty close to the much more of an every snap player than a third of a snap type of player this week. So I do like that at 3K. All right, let's round this out at tight end. And tight end, if Kelsey's on the slate, you can always play him in cash, but your DraftKings teams they look so much better when you play a crappy tight end in general. But the crappy tight end, it can't be Evan Ingram is just basically my point. It can't be Evan Ingram. Now, Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, I believe they're both extremely unlikely to play, if not
they're
already.
out. Yeah, they're out.
They did get ruled out. So maybe you can play Evan Ingram, but in tournaments, I wrote up for anyone but Evan Ingram in tournaments is basically my play. I can't get to Darren Waller. He had that giant 19 targets, which is just in week one, which is just going to skew everything for a while. I think in terms of projections, he's averaged out at basically 7 per game. His car has been slinging it around the field a little bit more. But is Dalton Schultz without Gallup? It looks like he has an actual real role. He's 4,400. We're going to have Mike Gesicki without Will Fuller and possibly Devontae Parker, or at the very least, multiple injury hobbled Devontae Parker. And Gesicki's put up back-to-back good weeks as sort of that middle of the field check down player of Jacoby Brissett going up against Tampa Bay, which is obviously absolutely one of their weaknesses here. So I like that tier much more than I like that 3K tier, but you could play, I don't think I'm going to click Evan Ingram in cash. I'm going to be honest. You
No.
can play, you can play a Cameron Brate. You can play Ricky Seals-Jones is 2,500. I know he's drawn some ownership at the dead minimum price. That lets you spend up on maybe a defense or get you to your boy Kyler Murray. I just think there's not like an absolute must. But I don't see myself spending, but I am eyeing the Dalton Schultz and Mike Gesicki tier. Those are probably my two favorites. And other than that, I'll probably just stone punt it with Ricky Seals-Jones.
Sometimes I see like a chalky player. I just literally can't figure out why. Like, what is it about Evan Ingram that has people going to him?
Like 3 years ago, he was halfway deep, but he's just a low ADOT, low touchdown percentage type of player right now.
Like Kyle, he's not even a full-time player this year. Kyle Rudolph is slicing off a big chunk of snaps. So like it could easily be Kadarius Toney or Kenny Golladay or Saquon. Like Ingram could be fifth on his own team in targets. This is not a situation to go all the way with him. I'm with you on Cam Brate being a better option. Why we shouldn't be afraid of RSJ, man. He is a legit talented receiver. We are not going down like to a Jack Doyle type guy and just hoping that they fall into the end zone once or twice. It's almost funny how Washington now they've taken Logan Thomas, who, as we all know, used to play quarterback in college, and Ricky Seals-Jones, who was a wide receiver convert. I believe he was. Either way, he was a extreme pass first tight end option. And they just give these guys like 100% snap rates with no question asked, while so many other teams are hesitant to do so. Then they won't feature their former collegiate wide receiver, Antonio Gibson, as much as we want in the pass game. So when Logan Thomas went out last week with a hamstring injury and he's now on IR, RSJ literally played every single snap the rest of the way. So we're getting a guy that could legit have a 100% snap rate for the stone cold minimum. And hey, Heineke's been fine. So, and we had those numbers before showing it could be a better advantage than we think through the air. So I'm fine RSJ, man. I don't think it's your typical min price tight end. Only other guy I would really point out, maybe in tournaments, Noah Fant at 4,900, correct? Yeah, he's not popping at all. I think people are either going to go all the way up to Waller or Kittle or settle down a little bit into the 3K range. Alberto, whose full last name we can never pronounce, is already ruled out with a hamstring injury, meaning Fant should be in one of those 100% snap roles himself. So I know targets and routes are the best predictors, but can't get those things if you're not in the field in the first place.
Yeah, Alberto has really been needing to Noah Fant's snap rate and targets and all that. So with him gone, that definitely solidified. It's just they're now Drew Lock targets against the Steelers, but the Steelers always do these wacky things in the middle of the field and leave guys mismatched or wide open. So maybe that will work out for Noah Fant this week. All right, I think that's going to do put a lid on it here for this show, Ian, of the Week 5 Pro Football Focus Fantasy Show. Tell people where they can find you. I told them at the beginning of the show. I'll let you close it out at the end.
Fun time. As always, my man, find me at pff.com, PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. We got 6 new episodes up all throughout the football season, taking you from reviewing the games to hitting the waiver wire to previewing the next week's games. I have on a guest every week, talk some DFS and talk some injuries, which I'm just about to go do now after this show. So fun time as always. And we'll be back here every Friday, rest of the way.
All right. For Ian, I'm Britt. Thanks for watching, everybody. And we out ya.